everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. All right, welcome back to the program. My guest is joining me right now, Dr. Sam Ikoku, the Managing Consultant and Chief Executive Officer at Nakachi Consulting. Dr. Ikoku, good to have you on the program and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, let's get started. Where should I even start? I have so many questions in my head now, but but let me just start. Do you think we have a productivity crisis in Nigeria?
Oh yes, we definitely do. We have always underperformed in terms of capacity, population, policies, and all of those resources that we have. And it didn't matter too much before, but right now, it means everything. If you look at the population of Africa heading to 2.5 billion in the next few years, by 2050, Nigeria at 400 million, and you look at the scarcity of resources, priority has to be given to productivity so we can do more with what we have. And this is the time to do that.
So in this case, what would you define, or how would you define productivity in this case?
Yeah, well, productivity is very wide. You know, everything from getting more horsepower out of your engine, to getting more torque out of your wheel, to getting more output out of the people, to be able to scale your business without decaying your service quality, to be able to get each Nigerian to participate more fully in driving economic growth. It's a broad subject, but it's fundamental to our moving forward as a country.
So what do the hard numbers reveal? And how do we compare to peer countries where we are right now?
Well, when President Obasanjo was there, he said Vision 2020 was to put us among the top 20 nations in the world by the year 2020. I think it's obvious to everybody that we missed that. I was there on the business competitiveness thematic group, and we made suggestions, but we're pretty far from that. And if you look at the growth of Africa specifically, our position keeps changing. I think we're down to number 5 now. And if care is not taken, we might fall a little bit lower. So the hard facts show that we're not doing as well as we should, but we could. And I think a few things are being done if we can survive the difficult times to move us probably better on a path of trajectory towards growth. Yeah.
So if we're to say, let's take it sector by sector, or that we're to set productivity benchmarks sector by sector, what measurable indicators should we prioritize at this time? Because you actually did mention earlier that productivity is wide.
Yes.
So what measurable indicators should we take note of?
Well, for me personally, because government is still the largest employer, government is still the largest investor in the economy, we should look at developing the public service and making it a lot more productive. One of my concerns is that we've come up with a new performance management system, but it's not yet been adopted. I think that's one of the first things to do. If we can get the civil service to be far more productive, we'll have stronger institutions, we'll have regulators who are as smart as, if not smarter than operators. We'll be able to implement our policies. I think that would be a great starting point. But every single Nigerian, all the way down to the smallest group of people, should look towards greater output with whatever little resources that we have.
What have been the biggest drags on Nigeria's productivity for this number of years? Why have we not been as productive as we should be as a country and for companies, then perhaps for individuals? That's a long one, though.
Yes, as a country, we still haven't gotten away from the attitude that it's all about the national cake. You know, everybody thinks Nigeria is wealthy, so how much do we get for our state, our region, our ethnic group, and stuff like that. That's destroyed productivity to a great extent. The private sector is doing better. They're still having difficulty with access to capital. They're having difficulty with dealing with certain policies that we have. But the individual is totally disengaged. The actual individual believes that government should just take care of everything for them. And they would argue with this, but they are just waiting to see things happen. You know, you hear things like, we have a new government, we have a bad government, or we're waiting for the next government. Every Nigerian must be able to come to the table and say, me and my household, how can I improve my productivity, whatever it is that I'm doing? And that's one of the biggest areas where we need to get an uptick.
Can you give me an example? Because sometimes, you know, we're lost in this. Can you just simplify so that we understand what we're saying? Because at the heart of even many economic conversations which I have anchored, those conversations come up around Nigeria is not globally competitive, we are not productive, we are not this. Productivity comes up. But can you just give us an example? Perhaps in terms of state, then in terms of individuals, like you said, as a household?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the civil service. And for me, that cuts across federal, state, and local government. The average civil servant today basically doesn't have a job description. They're taken on, it has a federal character, they just graduated, they know someone, they're put into a ministry, and they grow based on longevity, how long you've been there and what you've done. The new performance management system is saying there must be a job description, there must be something we must monitor, there must be a reason for promoting you. You've seen what has happened when we tried doing examinations for permanent secretaries. The results have been atrocious. And if the same people are leading the public service, what do you expect? So a lot more has to be done there rather quickly. At the state level, my personal challenge is, if you look at the 70s and 80s, we had state investment corporations. They did different kinds of things, ceramics, plastic, all those sort of things. And now they're saying there's no employment. But those companies are moribund. Nobody's activating them. Nobody's putting them to work, to give work to the citizens of the state. That's a big drop in productivity. Social media has become a big distraction. Everybody wants to be a content creator. Everybody wants to sell things online. But there's more to life than that. You know, that's a good way. It's a convenient way to sell things. But you also have to be a producer. We can't all be consumers. We have to produce certain things. Furniture, metal bits, parts for equipment. Nigerians are not doing enough. That's my personal view. Government should help. And government is doing what it can. Frankly, around the world, government is privatizing a lot of things. And it's happening here as well. We just need to get a little bit more engaged and stop waiting for handouts, I think.
It sounds so easy. I don't know if you listened to the reports that we took earlier on. Some residents in Abuja are finding it difficult now to eat 2 square meals. So how do you tell that person that is hungry and perhaps angry to be more, to be productive? What does it look like?
The first question for me would be, how did we eat 2 square meals before? Was it because our salary could afford it? Was it because we were more productive? Was it because...
Perhaps the economy was a bit better than what it is now?
The economy is tanked right now. It's a difficult time. But you have 2 choices. You can either give up, you can get engaged some more. It's difficult. I know how many people I have to deal with to support. We all have to put hands together. Government says it's doing certain things, you're reducing taxes, there's so many things government is doing. We can't say they're not. But we keep saying, let's have a human face. But here's the question, Nancy. Are we just going to give people handouts? Can we even afford to do that? What's driving food prices? Because that's the key thing. What's driving food prices? If it's the fact that we don't have fertilizers, that should be a priority. If it's the fact that we cannot evacuate foodstuffs from the farms to the market, that should be a priority. If people see the government is giving the priority to what deserves priority, they will come out and support a bit more. I think that will help.
Do we have a productivity policy in Nigeria or a productivity agenda? I know there's a National Productivity Center, and I'm struggling to understand what that center is supposed to be doing.
Yeah, well, I've engaged with them as well, and I think what they do basically is come up with ideas which they try to share with government. Whether government listens is a different thing. Um, I don't know if we have a policy for that, but I have been in the productivity space for 39 years, Nancy, and I've decided that if you wait for government, we're never going to get anything done. So I've decided to do something, and I'm hoping that more and more people will do, something along those lines to see if we can help get productivity to jump.
So what are you trying to do?
Well, I came up with the National Productivity Agenda, 2025 to 2035. Having been a productivity consultant to many agencies, I found out that not only in those agencies do you find that departments are like silos, they don't work together, but you also find that government agencies do not work together, they do not collaborate. Some of them have overlapping functions and so on and so forth. So what I tried to do is use my own access to some of them to create conversations which they probably wouldn't have had on their own, to facilitate meetings, to move agendas forward. This year, our focus is on three things. Number one is patriotism, then government efficiency, and then productivity itself. In the area of government efficiency, we know there's a new performance management system. We know it's been pretty difficult for people to make that happen. So my company is coming up with corporate social responsibility, where we're going to people and say, we know what the problems are, and this is how you could do this, and it's absolutely free. And we're beginning to see results happening in that area. We've tried to reach out to many agencies of government. I won't name any of them. We don't know if they even read the letters at all, because they don't get back. But the truth is, all of us must get involved. We in the private sector must take what we know from the different people we're working with and see where there could be synergies and make it part of our patriotism to bring these agencies to talk together and try and make things happen for our people.
So with what you're saying about patriotism, are you seeing that as an economic strategy?
Well, if everybody's talking down about the country, and everyone who has any bit of money wants to run out of the country, then patriotism is a productivity issue. People are tired. People want a better life. People want greener pastures. But if we also understand that Nigeria is a team we didn't choose, it was chosen for us.
It's a team we didn't choose.
We didn't choose. No,
it was chosen for us.
It was chosen for us. So it behoves us to make our team win to some extent. Travel if you want to, but don't abandon where you're coming from. We have enough Nigerians in the diaspora today who are doing very well. Give them incentives to come home and invest. Create new programs, new policies. Stop copying other people's programs. We are in a very unique position, and we need unique leaders to make it happen. And that's why we're trying to do what we're doing at the National Productivity Agenda. It's not easy, Nancy. Even when you're trying to help people, it's not easy.
Yeah, so how do you get it into the mainstream? Because there's I've actually been saying it for a long time, that there's a productivity crisis in Nigeria. Because part of productivity too, you talk about innovation, you talk about workplace development and all of that. Even in the workplace, you did mention earlier on about what happened, the PAMSEX, and people not even having clear JDs as to what they are supposed to do. When you're talking about even employees, there's an employee crisis. There's a getting workers to do jobs. There's a crisis.
Yes.
Bring that in that space. Either you understand what I mean. So I don't even need to widen it. So how do we now close that gap? How?
See,
because you mentioned something. People that have little money are leaving. Yeah. They are the ones jackbuying. So the people right now that we have in Nigeria is like the bottom of the pyramid, is like the worst of the worsts, put it that way. And you are seeing a lot of us trying to scamper for the best of the worst, if there's anything like that.
Okay, well, when it comes to that, it's obviously a leadership problem, Nancy. I mean, look, if someone is working, take a level 5, level 6, level 7, whatever the levels are, and they don't have a clear job description, they don't have key result areas, what they do is when they see the boss coming, they pretend to be busy. but leave them on their own, they don't have anything to work with. They don't even know what they should be working on. They don't know how their contribution adds to what the next person is doing and how the cumulative effect is moving the entire economy forward. And then the tools. Have you been to some of our offices? The lighting is poor, insufficient seating arrangements. We've got the big men driving Prado Jeeps and getting brand new ones, but we've got people working who don't have desks to sit on, who don't have sufficient lighting. And we all know that all of these things have an effect on human productivity. So we're not taking it seriously enough. We need to do that. If we can do that, I'm sure we can get more things out of our people, even without putting more in. We've not yet maximized the capacity that we have, and that's a big leadership problem.
What lessons can we learn from countries like Vietnam, Indonesia? And I'm specific about those two countries because those two countries have leveraged productivity-led reforms, you know, to integrate into global value chains. Even the Malaysias, even China, you know, China for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
What lessons can we really learn from these countries that we can apply or Nigerianize? Of course, we shouldn't do copy and paste because there are two different scenarios, but are there some reforms, are there some things that we can Nigerianize?
Look, if you put us side by side with all these people, put Nigerians side by side with Singaporeans, Malaysians, Chinese people, we talk up a pretty good game. We know what's going on. We understand what works. We've seen all of that stuff. They give us awards for doing that. Our police get awards when they go outside the country. They get no respect here. I mean, we know what to do. But see, here's the problem. All these countries you've mentioned have burned their boats. They have said there's nowhere else to go but forward. Nigerians still think we have options. We still think we're big brother. We still think the oil will never run dry. We still think there's a national cake. We still think we can be incompetent, but federal character will give us access to jobs. We still think we can, you know, buy our way out of situations. We still think that corruption is the key factor of production. We've not burnt our boats. We need to know there's nowhere else to go. The minute we know that there's nowhere else to go, then we'll get into this fight and we'll win.
And who should know where else to go? Who should we be pointing our fingers to? Is it to all of us, or first to government, to be able to create that enabling environment for every one of us to try?
Well, it's the easiest thing in the world to look at government, Nancy. It's always easy to say, oh, government, or APC, or PDP, or democracy, or military. It's the lazy way out. The truth of the matter is each of us must be concerned with our circle of influence before we worry about our circle of concern. And what's our circle of influence? Our family unit. Our family unit is being run the way we would like to see the country run. Is this studio being run the way we would like to see the entire Ministry of Information run? Are we doing our bit at our circle of influence? Because when you do that, then it expands throughout the whole economy. If we have good children brought up properly, we will need fewer policemen and fewer prisons, to put it crudely. But that's how it works. All of us must get back on the table and say, for me and my household, we're going to be more productive. We're going to be less wasteful. We're going to be more investment-oriented. We're going to come together and agree as a team what works best for the country, for the company, for the family. And that's the only way forward.
You talked about productivity, patriotism earlier on as perhaps one of the pillars that you are anchoring this product. Are there other pillars?
Yes, government efficiency is one of them. I was fortunate working with Joaba in Bureau of Public Service Reforms, and we saw that the performance management system wasn't going to do much. It wasn't effective. Most people know that. So we developed something else. It was passed over to the head of service. I think now they've said that's what everybody should follow. But you can't find many people who are cutting over to that because there's so many things that need to be done for it to work. We must know what the compact is between the ministers and the president. We must know what the compact is with permanent secretaries and their ministries. We must know what the mandate is and make sure that all our staff understand that. We must give them job descriptions and key result areas. We must give them a management and monitoring and evaluation framework that clearly works based on KPIs. So we're still a long way off, but I'm not seeing the enthusiasm that we need. So we might still be here in the next 3, 4, 5 years if something is not done. That's a priority.
So what can we do about that? Because if you're not seeing the result or that enthusiasm, what should we now do? Because it will make us lag behind, definitely, because the rest of the world will not be watching us.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of the world is actually moving ahead.
Here's what I'm doing, personally. We have a CSR program. We write to people who say, look, it's absolutely free. Bring your top people. And we're talking to them about flawless execution, and we're talking to them about performance management. Just because it's free doesn't mean everybody's saying yes to us. But those who do see that all our years of experience can come in and help them get things to move. And we're seeing a lot of changes. I don't want to mention particular agencies, but we're seeing agencies that are hitting the ball right out of the park because they're looking at things in new ways. Everybody knows what they should be doing. Now, if I had my way, I would like to do CSR for every single birdie, but some people won't even accept it. They don't believe anything is free. But that's the key, Nancy. That's the key. And if we can get, here's the thing, leadership is no longer about who's at the top. It can be at any level in the organization. Leadership is effectiveness at the point of main effort. And once people understand how important their jobs are and what it can do for the economy, more people will rise without waiting for nominal authority, and they will make things happen. And once we begin to have good examples, I think nothing succeeds like success.
You know, at the heart of even GDP growth is productivity growth.
Yeah.
And how do you see Nigeria perhaps balancing that short-term GDP growth targets? This administration says that it sees a GDP growth target of about 7%, for example. So how does it balance that short-term GDP growth target with long-term productivity-driven competitiveness?
One of the most powerful questions I've heard you ask, Nancy. Because the truth of the matter is, it's not a relay. Even when you're doing short-term, you started working on long-term. Because you don't get to a point where it stops and says, oh, now it's medium-term, and then, oh, now it's long-term. The truth is we don't have visionaries. If you ask the average person, where do we see Nigeria in 2050? They only talk about population.
Yeah.
They talk about average youth will be about 19 years old and so on. But they forget the key things that will drive Africa is natural resources. We've got gold, uranium, we've got all of those things. We're allowing foreigners to come in and put money because $1 is at 1,500 naira. We are misunderstanding our priorities. We must control our mining industries. We must control our natural resources to create wealth for our youth. If we don't have that, we don't have anything. It's a big discussion, Nancy.
Can we start untangling them a bit? You know, you just said earlier on that I asked this important question, but I've not been able to get an answer from what you just said. Can you just expand on what I asked earlier on in terms of the short-term GDP growth target with what we are supposed to look at in terms of productivity that would drive that competitiveness? The government wants to achieve a 7% GDP growth rate. What will make us get there? For example, at the beginning of the year, President Tinubu says, I want to see a 15% inflation rate, 15% inflation rate by the end of this year. We're at about 21% or so. There also has to be productivity-linked areas to be able for us to, we can't just say 50% and we all go to sleep and expect that by December we'll get, there has to be a target to the CBN, for example. There has to be a target to the Minister of Agriculture, for example. There has to be a target to everyone or any role within that value chain that will make us, okay, we're a serious country, let's get 15%. Is it possible? How do we get there? So that's actually what I'm asking.
Yeah, so and that's a good question, Nancy, because that question should have been asked before the number was given. If the president says that 15% GDP growth, he must have had his discussions with his people to know what's going to drive 15% growth. You don't start with that percentage and now expect people, because what you do, you get insincere data to try and fit into what you've asked for. But having said that, if everyone takes their sectors seriously, aviation, agriculture, science and technology, and sits down as one group and says, what can we do to even beat the president's target? I think we can get better results going. Look, it's not easy, Nancy, because people are not really trained. Take capacity building. Capacity building for most people in the civil service is a chance to earn some duty tour allowance, take a short break, and come back. They don't see it as building capacity. Okay? If you don't build the capacity of people, especially when technology is changing, markets are changing, well, where are you going to get that GDP growth from? So we all have to do a lot more. I mean, I don't want to go into details of now mentioning agencies, but I know some agencies that are really, really working hard. And there's some agencies that are doing stuff that are not being properly shared to the public. You know, I mean, we have agencies that are funding Nigerian businesses, but are not getting the credit because they probably don't even know how to blow their own trumpet, so people don't know they're there. I've met CEOs who are so passionate about this country, but they're having to deal with a serpent first. The serpent of civil service where, you know, the departments don't work together. So half of their tenure is spent just trying to get their people to talk to each other. It's a big problem, but it's being solved. I don't want to sound like I'm not pessimistic here. It's being solved, but I'm also saying that PGOs like me, what I mean by private government, para-government organizations, who have worked with different ministries and who've seen the gaps, should be able to step into that space and get them to talk to each other and to move things forward. Because the bureaucracy in the public service is not allowing the policies we have to be optimized. And so para-government agencies must come up.
Okay, part of the pillars that you said, national productivity agenda should be based on, first of all, you talked about patriotism. Second, you talked about government efficiency. Is there any other one that we need to look
patriotism.
at?
We started with patriotism.
No, patriotism,
Yeah.
then government efficiency.
Yeah.
Is there any other one?
Yes, I think for it to have depth, what we are looking at is we're having a different theme every year. Like for 2026, we're probably going to go into sovereign AI. We're going to go into good parenting, because that's the starting point for most things. And what do I mean by sovereign AI? All of our information today is raw material that's being wasted. You go to ChatGPT, you go to any of the LLMs, what do you get? You get information that's off Google, off X, off Twitter, off all of this. Where's our data? Where's our cultural data? Where's our historical data? It's not there, it's lost. If we don't start putting it all together, building our own large language models, artificial intelligence will make us even more backward than most people. So these are conversations we'll have, but they have to be annual conversations so we can go deep into them. Let me tell you about patriotism. There's some agencies we have in Nigeria. We've written to them. We have not gotten a single reply, Nancy. Not a single reply. We're not asking them for money. We're even saying we're going to use our clout to bring in money to them through corporate social responsibility. Not even a response to those letters. And I won't want to name and shame anyone, but we have agencies that are actually doing nothing at all. And then we have agencies that are doing a lot. But everybody has to come to the table and do something better than we've been doing so far.
Human capital remains very central to productivity growth, because there's no, all the things that we're talking about still centers on that human capital. What specific interventions should we begin to see in the educational space? I'm choosing my question very intentionally. In the educational space concerning workforce skills development that will yield the highest productivity for us, perhaps in the next few years. You talked about AI earlier on. You're looking at the quality of graduates. I think the Ministry of Education has now introduced stuff around technical education, vocational education. What kind of education will take us there? Because I really get, you know, the kind of graduates we are seeing now, I actually weep, you know, because when you tell them, okay, write just a note, you're seeing different errors, you're seeing, when a graduate speaks, like, did you go through the 4 walls of a school? Then at the end of the day, should I also blame that graduate, or should I blame the system that graduated that person? So what kind of interventions do we need in the in the workspace as well as the educational sector?
Well, first and foremost, Nancy, that's a tough question, but that's a leapfrog intervention that we need. I remember in the 70s, we had one telephone line to 10,000 people, according to the International Telecommunications Union. Obasanjo came and we went GSM. Nigeria is now being touted as one of those countries where you have great penetration, even though we still don't have it in the rural areas. We had to leapfrog the technology. We didn't put more wires, more handsets. We had to just leapfrog. With education, we have to nuke everything that we have. It's useless. And we have to ask, what sort of jobs are we going to look for in this fourth industrial revolution? And start today to build a curriculum for those courses to make our people relevant. You can't go to school to study finance today from a professor who graduated in 1965. We have created more derivatives, more financial products, more financial instruments than he will ever know in his lifetime. So if you're going to school and thinking I got an MBA because I went to XYZ University with a 65, 70, 90-year-old professor who last time he read a book was in 1972, you're dead on arrival. But while the change is going on, why can't our youth also use the internet to self-educate? Why can't they use AI to learn broader things and probably find new passions? That's a possibility. The power is in their hands as well. So while the educational system is being changed, we all have a role to play. And the educational system to be changed instantly, automatically, and it should be future-oriented.
Very futuristic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. While we're talking, I just went on the National Productivity Center website. I asked a question
Yes,
earlier
you did.
on. Yes, Dad. I do know there's a National Productivity Center. And the National, I'm reading now from their site, National Productivity Center is a research-oriented federal government parastatal established by the Act CAP 70 LFN 2004 to stimulate and promote productivity consciousness in all the sectors of the Nigerian economy, monitor productivity trends, and lead the productivity movement in Nigeria to ensure a competitive and productive economy. So at the heart of this is the economy. Okay. Now let me go to their mission, to develop the mindset and institutionalize productivity culture in the citizenry. That's for each and every one of us, for the enhancement of service delivery and quality of life. I don't even know if many Nigerians know there's a National Productivity Center in the first place. I think she should be under the Ministry of Labour, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So where do we start from here? Their office is somewhere in Abuja.
Zone 4.
Yes, Zone 4.
Zone 3, rather. Yeah.
Cape Town Street, from
Yeah.
what I see here. Yes.
Let me tell you something. I said I wasn't going to mention any names, but because you brought one up, I'll bring one up.
Because they are the center in charge of what we are talking about.
Last year, my firm, Nakachi Consulting, we went over to them and said, free CSR program, let's do a strategy implementation readiness audit. We had read all of these things. So it's okay, well, what's the problem they have? How ready are you to implement a strategy? We went there, we did everything for them, we sent a report in, they never called us back. It's about a year now. Sometimes when you go into a place and say, maybe we can do this, and maybe it can work this way, they think you're an intruder. Many people are just beautiful mandates. Pick anyone. Pick anyone. The mandates are beautiful. Execution is zero.
So does that now give credence to the fact that there are some agencies that are not needed in Nigeria? And some should be scrapped.
Yeah, if they continue the way that they're going, then they don't need to exist. But also, we should not put people there because of political exigencies. You can't be head of a productivity thing, for example, if you don't know anything about productivity, just because you were a political party pundit or whatever. We have to put square people in square holes. We have to put people. I have a story, Nancy, but we don't have time. I have a friend I met in 2014 in Barcelona. He developed a mobile app. I was interested, and I said to him, I said, hey, Chris, you're going to make a lot of money on this thing. A few years later, I went to Singapore. I saw him, and I said, come on, bring out your Lamborghini. Let's have a drive. He said, I don't have any. I said, what happened? He said, I work for the government. I said, but you had a great product. He said something I'll never forget. He said, in Singapore, they look for the best people. Because if the operators are smarter than the regulators, the economy will tank. And if there's anybody out there listening, that's what they need to know. Our regulators need to be even smarter than the operators. Otherwise, we'll just have nice mandates and zero results.
So for that, your friend, the government absorbed him? Is that what?
Yeah, yeah. So he'll work there for a couple of years. It won't take away what he knows.
Yeah.
But he will
to enhance what government is doing.
Absolutely.
I've always asked, even at this table, when I interview DGs, CEOs, and co, I always ask them that question somehow, in terms of their regulatory oversight. What are they doing? You know, are they doing enough that shows that they are smarter than those that they are regulating? Because, for example, this productivity center, I'm sure that some people will be hearing it for the first time today on the program. Yes, that there's a national productivity center and what it is supposed to do. And I've read the mission for us to listen to. But as we get towards the end of the program, what else would you really like to leave with us? Because we've looked at even the government side. Are we looking at the companies part of that's private sector? Because sometimes also we say that our private sector is doing well, is doing well. We know that private sector is really driven by profit and can do, to some extent, whatever it needs to achieve that profit. So are there things that private sector needs to do? Then I also need to bring in this part. Nigeria is informally driven. A lot of us are into small businesses. What can we begin to do to be able to achieve high productivity?
All right, let's start with the private sector companies, or what we call the organized private sector. It's like a case of one-eyed man in the land of the blind. Yes?
He's the king.
Yeah, I mean, they're okay, but they're not as good as they should be. Why do I say that? We've got big companies leaving Nigeria. They say the economic situation is no longer good for them. You have people like GSK and a few names, I don't know, they leave the country. I would have thought that the private sector would move right in and take over that space, because you've been fighting for that space all along. So if these people go and there's still a vacuum, then what's the private sector really doing? Secondly, we are seeing rapid privatization of government. Why is it that whenever there's a government, we have the same 6, 7, 9 businessmen always hanging around the villa? Are we sure that it's for the country? Are we sure it's for their business? We have to address all of these issues. Put the right people in the right agencies. Put the right people to get the job done. Put the right performance management system in place, hold people accountable, and let the private sector, people like I and you, put our money where our mouth is and step out there and train people. I asked a university to allow me to come and talk to entrepreneurs for free. They still didn't get back to me.
You know, I interviewed Professor Akpan yesterday, and he said something very important. He said, for example, we have an economic management team. Must we have private sector people in the economic management team with the government? Because if you have them, they would somehow, through moral suasion, be tilting governments to do their own bidding. So that is also what you've said.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I think we'll continue this conversation another day. Thank you very much for being on the program today.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you.
All right, I've been speaking with Dr. Sam Ikoku, and we've been looking at Nigeria's productivity crisis. The long and short of it is that in your own little circle, try as much as possible to be the change that you want to see, like I always say. All right, that's it. I am Nancy Naji from the team, and I do have a wonderful day. Be the change that you want to see. And of course, what else? I'll see you all on Monday. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute, watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.